Hey everybody, welcome back to another business analysis video. In today's video, I'll be talking to you about how to gather and elicit requirements. We'll be looking at the top techniques that we use as business analysts for gathering and eliciting our requirements. I can hear somebody asking me, what is the difference between requirements elicitation and requirements gathering? Now, I find that a lot of people use these two terms interchangeably, right? So as much as I would say there's not really that much difference, or there's no difference, but there is a difference. There's no difference because people just use it to mean the same thing. But when you look at the word gathering and look at the word eliciting, okay? Gathering looks at bringing together, collecting information or things that already exist, right? While elicitation looks at drawing out. You are trying to pull out, trying to sort of trigger and draw out your requirements. You're trying to seek your requirements from stakeholders. Okay, so those are the differences. Now let's look at today's topic, the requirements elicitation and gathering process, the various techniques that we use as business analysts. But first, why do we need to gather requirements? Why do we need to elicit requirements? Business analysts can be brought on a project to investigate a general concern with the organization or with a particular project or domain, okay? Business analysts can also be brought on to diagnose the weaknesses in a business process. And business analysts can also be brought on to investigate, to compile the requirements for the system so that our projects can start. Now, another reason for requirements elicitation is the stakeholders. Stakeholders are mostly unaware of the various alternatives that exist when it comes to delivering a product, delivering a new system. They're also very set in their ways, and generally it can be quite difficult for them to move away from something that they're already used to. And it can also be quite difficult to draw them towards change. It can be quite difficult to really understand and bring them into the project. So another reason for requirements elicitation or requirements gathering is the stakeholders. And this is because stakeholders are mostly unaware of all the various alternatives that exist when it comes to delivering a product, when it comes to delivering a system. Their vision also tends to be quite limited based on their perspectives, because they're different stakeholders. They view their requirements or view their area of work from their own perspective. So this is why requirements elicitation and gathering is very important. Again, it's also quite difficult for stakeholders to move away from what they're used to move away from the things that they do, and to start to draw towards a change, to start to draw towards the value add for the organization. So these are the main reasons why business analysts need to do requirements gathering. So there are various techniques that we use as business analysts. However, this depends on the size of the project, or the area that we're investigating, or the location. Now, as business analysts, because there are various techniques that we can use for drawing out requirements, we need to understand the size of the project, the area that is being investigated. We need to know the location, the number of stakeholders, as well as the nature of information that we are trying to explore. Now, before you start eliciting your requirements or applying the techniques that you have chosen, there are 4 questions that you need to ask, okay? Number 1 is, who are your stakeholders? By asking these questions, there are various other techniques that you need to apply to these questions, such as your stakeholder analysis and stakeholder map. Number 2, what techniques do I use? Again, there are various techniques of which we will explore a few of those. Number 3, how do I gather the requirements? And number 4, what questions do I ask? So you want to have all these questions answered before you start your requirements elicitation. So what are the various requirements gathering techniques available. These can be split into two, which are the qualitative and the quantitative. The qualitative involves the one-to-one and collaborative aspect of requirements elicitation, and the various techniques include interviews, shadowing, workshops, observation, prototyping, scenarios, and storytelling. The quantitative approach looks at the quantity, the volumes, okay? It looks at the data that we're trying to obtain, and it's concerned again with data and volumes. And the techniques within this include the surveys or questionnaires, your document analysis, activity sampling, and special purpose record. So for the purpose of today's videos, I'm going to quickly talk about top techniques, and these are techniques that I've also applied in my role. So let's look at document analysis. As the word already states, we are analyzing various documents. So document analysis involves reviewing documentation of the current system that you want to improve or identify issues on, so that you can perform your as-is and gap analysis. So you're sitting down and reading documents and analyzing it. It's generally used to supplement other techniques such as the workshops and interviews. So it helps you start to understand various areas of the organization, and it helps you start to pinpoint or draw out the questions that you would ask during the interviews or workshops. So the sort of documents that you're analyzing will include the internal documentation and reports, the procedure manuals or user manuals, your project initiation document, your business case, and various other documentation. Now, surveys and questionnaires are surveys and questionnaires. So you would prepare a list of questions that you want to ask your stakeholders, and you generally use it when there are a wide variety of stakeholders that you need to gather requirements from, and a large number of stakeholders. So it's used when you're trying to gather a limited amount of information from a lot of people, a lot of stakeholders. And you would use this because interviewing these people individually or running workshops is not practical and is not cost effective. So there are many tools available out there for you to create your surveys, for you to create your questionnaires, but business analysts need to really consider the design of these surveys or the design of these questionnaires. You need to have a heading section, you need to have your classification section, and your data section. Now let's look at interviews or meetings, your one-to-ones. Interviews, one-to-ones or meetings are a great way to start your requirements elicitation process. You can use it for gathering your background information for business needs and problems faced, okay? And they can also be used as a follow-up to gather more detailed information. Bear in mind that the interviews, meetings, or one-to-one is not specific to just one stakeholder. You can have as many as 3 or 4 stakeholders during your interview sessions. Now, there are various reasons why you would go with interviews as opposed to workshops. They really help you as a business analyst to focus on the views of the individual, on the perspective of that stakeholder, and to provide an environment where the stakeholder or the interviewee has an opportunity to discuss their concerns, and so that they can feel that they're giving that individual attention. It's a good way for you to build one-to-one relationship with your stakeholder. So as business analysts, we really need to be prepared to ask the right questions during our interviewing sessions. You want to ask why, you want to ask what, you want to ask who. You want to really know what the processes are, what the stakeholder involvement is within that process. You want to really explore and use this time wisely with that stakeholder to gather all the information that you need for the purpose of that meeting. Now, workshops. Workshops provide an excellent collaborative way in which you can discuss issues with stakeholders, you can resolve conflicts, and you can elicit your requirements. Workshops are also very useful for other activities such as mapping your processes, compiling your process models, eliciting your critical success factors and KPIs, key performance indicators. It can also be used for gathering data, your data requirements. So workshops are very valuable when time and budgets are tightly constrained and several viewpoints need to be explored or reconciled. So it really helps you to gain a broad view of the area that you're investigating as a business analyst. It helps you to increase your speed and productivity, where you can just have all the stakeholders in one room. Again, you need to really determine the reason why this workshop is holding and what value it would bring for your business analysis process. It helps you to obtain buy-in and acceptance for the project, where you have all the stakeholders with their different perspectives and you can then help them to gain that buy-in. It also helps you to gain a consensus view or group agreement. So everybody is in that workshop and you can really gain that agreement from everyone in the room at the same time. It saves time a lot during your requirements elicitation. Now, one thing with workshops is that you really need to prepare for it, okay? You need to know what the objective of the workshop is. What are you trying to get from the workshop? You need to know, identify your stakeholders, the people that are to be invited or the people that are to participate in the workshop. You need to know what the structure of your workshop is and the technique that you're using during the workshop. And you need to arrange a suitable venue for your workshop, as well as arrange the time. Know exactly what the structure is so that you can keep to the time of the workshop. Now, there are various techniques as well within workshops, such as brainstorming. You can brainstorm ideas, round robin discussions, brainwriting. You can also use sticky notes, post-it note exercises, breakout or syndicate group exercises. So there are various techniques that you can adopt within your workshop facilitation meetings. Now, another interesting technique that I also enjoy is the observation. Within this technique, the business analyst is observing the workplace, observing the user, observing the system, okay? Observing the staff that carry out the work. The observation technique is very useful to obtain information about the business environment and the work practices. So as business analysts, when we are doing observation, we need to ensure that the person is reassured and to let them know that the objective of your observation is to understand their tasks and not to judge their performance, so that they can perform this task truly and you can really gather that true information of their processes or their use of the system. So observation really helps you as a business analyst to gain a much better understanding of the problems and difficulties faced by the users. You also see the tasks being performed, and then it can help you identify relevant questions for a follow-up interview with that person, for instance. So just like all the other techniques, there are also techniques within this that you would use, such as formal observation, protocol analysis, shadowing, and ethnographic studies. Now, the final one that I want to talk about is prototyping. Prototyping is really helpful when you're eliciting, when you're analyzing, when you're demonstrating, and when you're validating your requirements. So as business analysts, we really struggle sometimes with users because we don't really know what they want, how they use certain systems. So it can be very difficult for us to define the requirements. This is where prototyping comes in. So prototyping involves building a simulation of your system, of your process. It has a pictorial representation of the system and the processes, so you can really know exactly what the requirements are. So it includes screens and images and navigations that you can build using any representation software products such as Microsoft PowerPoint, for instance, so that you can really mirror the system. You can also mock up your prototype by using flip charts. You can use pen, you can use sticky notes, and really collaborate with the staff during this prototyping session. Again, prototyping is a technique that you can apply within workshops and interviews. So a lot of times these techniques can be used at the same time. So this is why we really need to know what are the various techniques that are available for business analysts, when can we apply them, and what value or what advantages are they representing for the purpose of our work. So that's the end of today's video. I hope you found value in the content. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this content. You never know who it might help. If you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Click the subscribe button so that you get updated whenever I upload videos. Till I see you in my next one. Peace.